Should be good to go now.
It's ready. Okay. So, welcome to this Upskill about Sanity, and welcome to Marcus from Sanity.
Thank you.
I'll let you say some few words soon, but I'll just say some introduction, get some introduction. So, this is how it all started for me. I needed a new web page. I joined this project Hessdalen. And then I kind of knew that what I was looking for was a CMS system, and I wanted to have a headless CMS system. I'm a developer, so of course I know about these things. But what is the best? I tried out some, and I landed on that Sanity looks like the very best one. And then I called for help and found Marcus. So maybe you can say just a few words about like who you are.
Yes, thank you. I'm Marcus. I'm part of Sanity, and I've joined Sanity 3 years ago. I'm Director for Strategic Solution Engineering here at Sanity, and in my role, I help agencies and partners to understand the value Sanity brings to them and to their customers. Before Sanity, I was at Unilever for 14 years, building global technology solutions with all kind of CMSs, Tridion, Magnolia, Adobe. And at some point, I came across Sanity, and that kind of opened my eyes of the art of the possible. And this is how I ended up using Sanity for Unilever. So unilever.com is nowadays on Sanity. And that also created the opportunity for me to join, which I am glad I had the chance to. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. So back to my problem. I'm a developer, so when I'm supposed to make a website, I thought, okay, React. But then I have been talking about React on Upskills before. I've also made this developer program under Project Hessdalen. So because normally at work, it's mostly like you just try to learn something, but in Hessdalen, I have like a task to solve and a community to talk to. It's kind of interesting. Just the other day, yesterday, I talked to a guy that was doing all kind of work with AI and ChatGPT and stuff. But now I needed to get the content creators into this. So just to remind people, go to developer.hessdalen.org and you'll find all kinds of stuff that we are trying to share with other people. Web technology is just one of it, and we have all kinds of AI and camera systems and tracking and stuff like this. But so this is the thing. I want to give you the short agenda. On Sanity, it says you're invited to the composable era. So I'll give you the short agenda for today. I'll just give you a few minutes about like what is the task I'm trying to solve. Then I'll show you my plan B because I couldn't take the time to learn about Sanity fast enough. So I needed something to get things out. And then I'm going to get the best tools from Marcus. And at the end, I'll just comment a little bit about the process, how I felt it, and maybe make it like a Q&A and not just me talking. So very fast, this is the task. You see that the web page that we had on the Hessdalen looked...
Do you want to share your screen? You're not sharing your screen yet.
I'm not sharing my screen. And all this stuff. And what is this? Let me see. Okay. Now I'm sharing my screen.
Now, yeah. Yes.
Yes. I should go a little bit just to show you this a little bit. Okay, we got that one. You got this one. And I just want to say that please go to Hessdalen, developer Hessdalen.org and see all this stuff that we are working on. And also, this is the composable area. I wanted to show you kind of like you're going from this primitive way of doing it, making websites, and to this modern way of doing it. So very fast, my task, then my plan B, then Marcus, and then some comments on the process, how it felt to get into this. So here you see the homepage as it was, terrible. Well, it's made in the last millennium, basically, but it has a lot of information, and I have made a new front page using React and Vercel. So I've been using Vercel and React on the new front page. I've been using Google Sites as a CMS system where other people can actually join in and edit. And I've been using FileMaker Pro, which is an interesting no-code, low-code system for keeping track of all my conference attendees. So basically, that is what I want to do and what I've done with my plan B. So how should I have worked? What is the best tools, Marcus? I'll leave it to you for some time now.
Yeah,
you can take over.
Fred. Yeah, thank you, Fred. Let me see if I can my screen and if I can add the little person here so you can see me and my screen at the same time. That's quite fancy. First time I'm doing this. What I wanted to, well, thank you first of all for the opportunity to speak here in front of this audience. We've connected a few weeks back, really interesting project, and I'm glad that we've been able to make some progress on helping you, and I'm looking forward to how this evolves over time. I wanted to talk a little bit about why Sanity is a very good choice for your project. And I wanted to do this in 3 sections, tell you a little bit about how Sanity started, why we created Sanity. Then I'll talk a little bit about what Sanity really is and what it is not. And lastly, I will talk about how Sanity is different and why it is actually the solution which will help you in the long term and also to achieve your goals. So let's get started. Let's see if I have the right buttons here. So how it all started. It all started in a small agency called Bangla in Oslo, Norway. And this agency has been around for a long time. The co-founders are still with us and are the people behind the tool. And our CEO is one of the co-founders as well. And this agency was really cutting edge, doing experimental things very early in the days. You can see in the background some robotics and 3D printing in the late 80s, 90s, early 90s. And one day, this person called Rem Koolhaas. Rem Koolhaas is a very famous architect out of the Netherlands. His architecture office is called OMA, and he wanted a new website. And the people at Bangla were all very interested in the arts and architecture, were really fascinated by getting this call and were really excited. And they already wanted to do this for any means. And this is another building from OMA Architecture in Beijing, just to give you a flavor. They're very modern architects and very famous for their different architecture they're doing. So the team was very excited, but then they started to look at the content they had available. It was all in WordPress. It was all mingled up. And this is obviously not a real picture of their office, but it kind of felt that way. Content was all over the place. It was bundled together. They had actually 2 full-time people responsible to search for references when they had new projects and it needed some context. And the team understood from the initial questions and discussions they've had that what they really wanted is an organized structure for all of their content, right? And this is really why they set out to build Sanity, because they couldn't find any tool on the market who could really organize the content of all these architecture projects in a way which would help them long term. So I'm going to go through a few key principles the team set out initially, which are still true and valid today. The first one is to adapt the editorial experience to the organization and not the other way around. And I think this is a key feature I'll talk about later a little bit more. It's about giving the flexibility to create the space people require when they operate in their content. And that might be very different for you, Fred, than for another organization who sells shoes, for example. So being able to organize and customize and configure the system to your needs rather than enforcing an UI by the company was kind of one of the key principles to start with. They wanted to create a natural authoring experience for humans and for people, but also something which is technically easy to use. So an API first by design, but also having an interface which is clean and easy to use for people to find around their content very easily. They wanted to create something which could get started quickly, but also last long. So this is kind of idea of having a source of truth for your content, to really have a place for all the content in a semantic structure, which can be reused across multiple devices, but also reused when you recreate when you refresh your website, right? So in your case, Fred, if you had your content in Sanity already, you could just rebuild the new experience in React, moving from something else, and still use that same content. They wanted something which developers loved because they were all developers themselves, but also because they really saw this movement to full stack developers coming, and really thought the people who are actually building the web experience should be the ones who can actually configure and manipulate the studio, which would allow people to have this natural interface I was talking about. They wanted something to be collaborative from the ground up. This was done in days where CMSs still had to check out documents in order for you to make a change. So they wanted to move away from this idea, and really what we are now very comfortable with, working in the same document like in Google Docs. They wanted that experience also for their CMS. And lastly, they really wanted to have something which would fit nicely into any kind of enterprise stack. And by this, I think it's really important to understand that greenfield projects are very rare. Usually you have some kind of existing legacy systems or some other systems you want to integrate with. So this again goes to the API first design to really build something which fits with other tools, where you don't have to have complicated middle layers, but you can easily interact with APIs to that system. So they created Sanity, and this is just a screenshot of the interface. On the left, you see a small part of the studio for OMA, and you can see a building has not a rich text field with a long description about the milestones and then some kind of blurb about the program. Instead, they really organized and stored content as data so that they can reuse it and cleverly create rich experiences. So on the right, you see a visualization of the milestones, which is coming just by storing the different milestones in this kind of structure. And then similar with the program, allowing to store and save the program in different line items, almost like in a database, allows you to create these rich visualizations. So this is in contrast to other systems like WordPress or other CMSs, which you might be familiar with, where you would just store that piece of information in a block and just write it down. So yeah, they successfully built this reusable content infrastructure, which is used to power the website. But it's also, and this is, I think, the really interesting part, it also started to get used internally as a reference for all the content they had stored as a company. So it's really about the content as a part of a company culture and a company asset. And this allowed them to build books on demand and create client-specific portfolios. And here you see a screenshot of a little coffee table book. That content is also served from the same repository, which is used by the website. And fascinatingly enough, the website oma.com is still live. It still exists in the same way as it has been designed. So I invite you all to visit oma.com at your own time and explore what I've been talking about. But now, what is Sanity? So Sanity is obviously a headless CMS. You know, we get this question all the time. We usually don't position ourselves as headless CMS because we think of content more horizontally across the organization, and headless CMSs typically are used to power a web-centric channel. So we usually say Sanity is a composable content cloud which treats content as data. And what this really means is something we're going to explore in the next few minutes. I'll just give you a very brief overview of Sanity. So we started in 2017. This is when we officially got founded as the company. The agency Bangla got shut down. We created a headquarter in Oslo and in San Francisco. Some of the key folks moved to San Francisco because this is where the VC organizations are. And we knew if we want to make this big, we need to play that game. So we embarked on this journey. When I joined, we were 40 people, we're now 150. So we've been growing ever since. And we are also adhering to all these standards like SOC 2 Type 2 compliance and support SLAs and SLAs for the technology as well. And all our infrastructure is based on GCP and hosted in Belgium for GDPR reasons. Very quick overview. I'm not going to bore you with the numbers, but you can see we are powering some of the biggest websites in the world. Some of the customers, obviously Unilever is one I brought to the table when I joined. You can see some big names like Spotify, which has a huge engineering culture in the company. They've been using us for all the support content you can find on the website or on the phones. Sonos, Skims is one of the most visited Shopify site where the content is being powered by Sanity, and then big names like AT&T, Puma, and Burger King. Overall, you can see our customers go across all kind of verticals, and you might spot some Norwegian names here and there as well, with NRK and Sparebank and Innovation Norway. We kind of joke that Norway is powered by Sanity because a lot of our initial customers are still around, and we've got a lot of trust from the Norwegian companies since day one. And we've been, cultivating this for a long time. But you can see all these different verticals are very good use cases, and that is because content is actually everywhere, right? So every vertical has content in some ways. We usually differentiate between 3 different core pillars, and which are more linked to the use cases. So the commerce use case is a typical one, which you can see on the right with Remarkable and Skims, for example. And then we have publishing use cases. As you can see, Morning Brew is a modern company sending out news in newsletters. You can see Amedia, famous in Norway as well, and NRK. And the third one is really the marketing sides, where people want to get across their stories of their companies, of their brands to the outer world. And you can see all these other companies use us in that context as well. Just very briefly on Burger King, because they were one of our early customers, trusting us very early in the days. In 2017, they started using Sanity, and they really developed Sanity as their core tool to organize the menus and which drink can you add to a burger. And then they federate this out into the web channel, into the apps, and into the kiosks, and also having APIs being then pulling that content into services like Uber Eats and Grubhub for the delivery services. And that is truly the idea of structuring content in this one place, which can then be pulled into so many different other places. And they've done this on a multi-brand approach. They use the same infrastructure and the same architecture for Popeyes, Tim Hortons, and Firehouse subs, which are some of the sub-brands of RBI. And all of this resulted in being recognized as one of the leading CMSs. And we've been recognized by G2 for the past 3 years, leading the Headless CMS part, but also some other categories, and also other surveys like the State of the Web Development from Netlify, where we continuously come out as the winning tool for a lot of the use cases. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but as you mentioned it earlier, Fred, we are now in the composable era. And what we mean by this is there is a history of the web. It all started with very static sites, and then it became slightly more dynamic and became the commerce. So the second phase was the digital stores, where everyone was trying to sell things online. But it was very catalog-based sites, usually very templated. And in the composable era is really where we want to focus on remarkable experiences, where we know that the content-centric approach is relevant, because people don't want to see a catalog site. They want to have an experience and a story behind a product. This is why people buy the big brands we all fans of. I'm going to briefly talk about the 3 key pillars of Sanity, because it will be important to understand some of the differentiating factors. The first one is the content lake. The content lake is a schemaless database which we host for you. This is kind of the SaaS offering at the core. This is where we are storing all your content in a good structure and in a way that you can easily retrieve it via the APIs into your front ends, but also into the studio. And the studio is the window to that content lake. So, but we, as I stated earlier with the principles, we wanted that studio to be separate because we wanted to have our customers being responsible for how that studio looks and works. And by this, we mean you are supposed to organize it in a way which feels natural to you so that the user can easily find their way around their content. And all this is connected via the APIs. Obviously, the studio and the content lake communicate via the APIs, but it's the same APIs as you use for bringing content from other sources into the studio or into the content lake, integrate with tools like translation services or personalization engines or A/B testing engines, all kind of tools, analytics if you want. And then also the APIs distribute that content to the channels, to your websites, to your apps, to your whatever channel you might use. So this kind of lands us playing a very central part of a lot of enterprise architectures where you can see we are very flexible. When people have a DAM, they can continue using their DAM and we can easily integrate with it. If they don't have a DAM, Sanity probably covers a very good use case for DAM, so for delivering the assets to the front end. We integrate easily with commerce solutions. Shopify invested into Sanity 2 years ago because they recognized the need for a content-rich experience. And all this then really leads to the upper part of this diagram where you have all these different channels and solutions. But how is Sanity different? And I wanted to start this with a quick quote from Dean Barker, who's been around the content world for a long time. And he says, in my experience, the #1 complaint of organizations looking to replace their CMS is simply our editors hate it. And this is why I wanted to talk about Sanity and why Sanity is actually different to this, right? And Sanity actually allows you to create a solution which you don't need to hate, where you are actually happy to go in and change your content because you feel confident about it. So I wanted to talk about 4 key differentiating factors, and I'll jump into demo setups as well, where we can see this live in action. So I hope the demo gods will be good with me. I'm going to talk about structured content. I'm going to talk about intuitive editorial experiences, powerful preview capabilities, and collaboration with AI. Let's start with structured content. Structured content, and Carrie Hain, who works at Sanity, who's a content strategist and a content person, she defined it as structured content is content that is broken into its smallest reasonable pieces, which are explicitly organized and classified so that computers and humans can understand them. Now, that's very theoretic. I always use simpler words and I say, for me, structured content is blocks of content which can stand for themselves, but can also be connected into semantic structures. And what I mean by this is something I'm going to show you in our demo setup. Let me see if I can just do this. Wow, that's amazing. So this is our demo setup. It's a fictional company selling ceramics and posters and things like that. I'm going to show it to you in a second. But when we talk about structured content, so you see here we have products and we have people, and these people might be the artists or the curators of these products. Then we have materials, because these products are actually made out of materials. Within materials, we have different types of content. So you can see here the jasmonite material, which is some kind of ceramic, has also FAQs, because the FAQs are related to the product and to the material and not necessarily just to one product. And color themes and events and all these kind of things. Instead of having your CMS organized by a page structure, we are now organizing the content by its semantic meaning. And that makes it easier to organize and easier to find. And that leads us to the next point in a second. But before we do that, I just wanted to create an FAQ for this product. We'll come across that FAQ later on. And so it's very easy to just create a question. And I prepared this already. Let me just copy paste this here. What's the best way to take care of Jasmonite? And the answer is to clean Jasmonite products, wipe down with non-abrasive, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to make this italic. So you can see here, having only the relevant information linked to us is really key. So it makes it very easy for us to find the content, feel confident. We don't want this to be the first one, so we can just move it up. And there we go. And then we'll publish this. Now, going back to our presentation, the next topic I wanted to talk about is the intuitive editorial experiences. And you've just seen how easy it was and intuitive it was to actually create that content. Where's my window here? But I just wanted to break down what really makes a great authoring experience. And I think it's really coming down to these three things. It makes it easy to achieve the task at hand. It requires minimal documentation. Like if you've been working with other content management systems, you know, usually you have an extra team just creating the documentation because it's dangerous and difficult and fragile to click on certain things. So people usually put a lot of effort in documenting each step you require to do, which you shouldn't really. And then feeling empowered and confident to make changes. I always think about our phones, which live in our pockets. Nobody has ever read a documentation about the phone. It feels very natural to use. Even my 6-year-old navigates my phone without any doubts and just finds her way around. And she knows she can click on things. There's nothing that can break. Whereas in CMS setups for big sites, and I can tell you this from my experience in my past, sometimes you do something wrong and suddenly everything is broken. Anyway, this was a little sidetrack. Going back to our CMS story, allowing the interface to look clean, to find your way around, and making it easy for your authors to just go ahead and do the content changes is a key part of what we've been embarking on. And this is a screenshot of our own setup for Sanity.io. You can see here how it's organized by categories and articles. So for me, when I started working here, I didn't need someone to explain to me what I am supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do certain things. I was just able to create a new agency in the agency repository because it's just really intuitive. And that's how it should be. And again, this is kind of why we have separated out the content lake from the studio to achieve this. The benefits of having an intuitive editorial experience is really that it reduces the complexity and cognitive load for the users. It reduces the need to create hacks and to have like errors popping up. And that leads to happier, more productive content editors, which then again saves you time and that can be translated into money. So let's have a look. Let's have a look into the authoring experience. I wanted to show you a few things. This company has obviously these products. We'll have a look at these products in a second, but they're also a lifestyle magazine. So here, I just wanted to show you that the interface for the product team is organized in this way. And actually the same content looks different if I click onto the magazine team. The magazine team has a different structure here. They don't care about the products. What they care about is the articles, and they might want to see which articles are performing well because we can lay over some analytics information or SEO data, for example, and then some guides which might need attention. And then these are the teams who might do experiments with different titles for A/B testing. So you see how just this slightly different structure in the CMS allows different teams to have a different setup, making it much easier for them to find their way around. And yes, so we'll come to that in a second again. I just wanted to talk about the other part first, the powerful preview capabilities. And that's been typically a gap in the headless CMSs. Headless CMSs have been felt these are boring forms which you need to fill. It's very difficult to see what you're doing. And so although we've been really found fans of structured content itself and of having these forms being really helpful, we also recognize that there is a need to actually see that content in context and be able to give that confidence back to the content authors. This is why we've been investing quite a bit of time into making it easy to find the source of content for our content editors by launching our preview capabilities, which is what I want to show you next. So we've seen these two different structures. If I go to the presentation tab, you will see the site in this case, because it's a website, but it could have multiple presentation layers if you wanted. I think it's loading a little bit slowly because of the streaming of my Teams meeting. So apologies for that. But here, which is a nice interface, merging and blended into my CMS space, I can see how my site looks on a mobile device, on a desktop, and I can see if I want to see only drafts or also only published content, for example. So you have a really granular way of previewing what you're actually doing. And so if we go to, and you can see here, you have a little edit button. So if I turn this off, I can actually click through the page and it will take me to the products in this case. And you can see here what we were talking about earlier. We have information about the artist who created the product. And that is brought into this document, into this specific product page without the need of copy pasting this multiple times. So if I want to change her name, I can do this in one place and it will be changed in all of the products where she's actually the artist from. And then you can see here further down, we also see now the FAQ we created earlier. And that's actually a bit too long. We want to actually make it look slightly better by shorten it. So I can just click into this preview here and it will take me in the CMS to exactly the spot I wanted to go to. And I'm going to just shorten it by saying how to take care of Jasmonite, because that fits much better into this block here. And because we are looking at the preview and the draft version, even without publishing, I can see how that content change is reflected. And it's reflected here on this product because it uses Jasmonite, but it would also be on any other product which uses the same material. Let's show another example. If this artist, we've misspelled her name, for example. So just by clicking on here, it will take me in the CMS structure to the field of her name, and I can just update it here, and I can also regenerate the slug if that's necessary. And there we go. And then I can just publish this, and this change will then populate and recreate the publishing workflow you might need to set up separately. That will, that's the Vercel and React part where you build the site to your needs. Great. The last point I wanted to talk about is the collaboration with AI. As I mentioned at the beginning, we want to collaborate between users. So we've set out our studios collaborative. Multiple people can be in the same document and type their changes in. But we also recognized very early that AI is going to play a bigger role. And we thought a lot about how can AI actually help us with this and help us with this without expecting it to do magic, because it doesn't do magic. So we still wanted to be in control of it. So the way we've looked at AI is to as an assistant, as a helper. So I sometimes like to use like a drunken student. So he's sometimes hallucinating a little bit, but usually he does the hard work, which I'm asking it to do. So let's have a look at Sanity AI Assist, and we'll just go to the structure of the magazine, and we'll just look at one of the articles. So you see here, this lifestyle magazine has a few articles. Some of them are in English, some of them are in Norwegian. Again, the ability to customize this view here allowed us to pull in this little NO and EN. We could also have a little flag here, for example. So it's all in your control on what is important for you. You could also split it out into a folder structure so that you have all the articles separate by country and not just in one big lump. But let's take this article about transforming coffee tables one tray at a time. You can see here we have this title here, and then we have a field for alternative titles because we want to maybe do an A/B test and see which title performs best. So I'm going to use AI Assist and say alternative titles, and you will see almost like a colleague joining in here. As you can see here, there's a AI assist icon, and suddenly I'm not doing anything, I'm not typing. It just creates these 5 different additional titles for my title. No, this is great. And a lot of tools, you're going to see in a lot of tools these prompts coming around. But what we wanted to do is not having to prompt them every time. So the way we thought about this is to recreate prompts. So you can see here, we call them instructions. And we have, in this case, one instruction. It's called alternative titles. You can see here, this is the instruction we gave it. It says, create 5 alternative titles taking in the main title, body, and context. We're testing for what converts best. And then adding reference to the title and to the body of the main article. So this is really helping to not having to do these prompts every time again and guessing them, but preparing and really thinking about your content workflow to create these rules and instructions for the AI assistant. You can then also share these AI assist instructions with your wider team. So I didn't create this one. This one is something that another team has created, and I just used it. So this also takes away the ambiguity and the necessity to recreate prompts by 5 different people, and they will all be slightly different. And you can see here, there's also AI context, so you can provide some information to the AI instance to use certain brand, tone of voice. You can give it some additional context about the company, and all this additional information will make the output much better. Now, where it becomes really interesting is if you want to create this article in multiple languages. So this is obviously in English. I'd like to have this article also in Norwegian, and I'm just going to click on this plus. It will now create a duplication of that article. And if I click on it here, you will see it next to each other. It's still in the same language. Obviously, it's only created a duplication. But in the system, it's now, this article here on the right is stored as the Norwegian version of the same article. And I can now use AI Assist to say, translate document. And again, you will see how the AI assistant is going through all these fields, even the referenced ones, and change the context into Norwegian. Now, you're Norwegian, you will be able to say if these translations are good or not. If they were not good enough, you would be able to go in and change them because it's just text. You can just edit as if another colleague would have done it. Great. This is what I wanted to show you, and this is why you don't have to hate your CMS, and Sanity can be the solution for this. And thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it back to Fred, and we can also take some questions at the end. Fred, can you take over the screen sharing? Because I don't know where.
Try. Apparently, I'm not so good in doing that, but here it is. I hope. Thank you. That was amazing. That was amazing. This was your slide. So I just wanted to comment a little bit on my experience, like how did it feel? And first of all, let's say I went to Sanity.io. I saw the menu. I was reading about the studio, the API, the content lake, and everything. And I felt like, yeah, interesting. This is, of course, I compared it to other systems as well, and feeling like, yeah, this is the direction I want to go. I started with like reading these courses and so on, and I was, of course, when you start on something that's so amazing, I experienced the Dunning-Kruger effect. Seriously. So I've been here on this peak, and I've passed this one, and I'm slightly on the move up again now. And I'll tell you what really helped me was that you now have this Sanity Learn, and just by going through this day one with Sanity and just step by step, this was so amazing. He is explaining it so nicely.
Yeah, that's true. And if I can just add,
Yeah,
Sanity
please.
Learn is also what will become our developer certification program. So we're developing this into a more robust course. We'll add more content to it as well. But interestingly, if you think about, usually you need an LMS for these kind of learning courses. But we use Sanity for that because it's all content structured in a way. So we use Sanity to power our learning setup as well.
And for me, it was like not long until you actually got into the code. So just a little bit of defining some types, and I had my own little schema, a little form I could fill in. And now it looks like what I'm looking for. This is actually on the website that it is created. But then, of course, then I get into these questions: how do I make the image fit? How do I replace the picture? There's an error here. There's not supposed to be 20, and so on. So, but this is the code. This is the code. This is where you see that you have the Sanity fetch. So this is React code, and this is just how you put it out. I don't understand how you can. Do I need to do something special to get your kind of online editing? Is that a different way of doing it? Do you put something special on,
Sorry,
or what?
Which online editing did you mean?
No, when you were showing that you had like the site on the left side, and then you click on it and you open actually the form. How do you do that? I'm back on that Dunning-Kruger effect a little bit. I want to know how
Yes,
how I can do that.
We can deep dive into. You mean these panels, right? So you can create multiple panels and you can trigger them in your Sanity code. But I will need to send you the references for that.
Yes. So to get this out, just Sanity deploy and it runs through, and then it tells you that you have to put this on the course, and then suddenly this is now out on Hessdalen.sanity.studio, and this is where I can invite my other content editors. And now suddenly I find more stuff. Like now I can upload and clear the field, and other questions show up. But it was but it was very nice to see how easy it was to get going and get into the code itself. So I only have like a few questions now. Like, what about Sanity and other systems, import, export, and API? If you would comment on that, and the last one about the hosting options.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy to talk about this because it's all done in code. It's very easy to integrate it with import and export. So you have an export function in the CLI, which allows you to export all your content into a gzipped file, which allows you to take that content into another system if you wanted to, or from one dataset to another dataset within Sanity. When it comes to importing content from other systems, it's slightly more complicated because usually you are coming to Sanity for a reason because you want to structure your content in a slightly better way. So you'd need to obviously make sure that the content you want to import gets into this better shape before you import it. So for that, you can use scripts, and you can use scripts to go over the content until you are happy with what is getting ingested. So what we typically see, and we have some plugins also when you are migrating from Contentful to us or from WordPress to us. But you know, it's a fairly simple principle. So if it's a messy setup initially, you're just migrating the mess, right? So you need to transform that content into that structure you want to achieve. With regards to the APIs, as I mentioned, our studio is connected via APIs to our content lake. So everything is APIs, and it's not just a studio which can write into the content lake. Your front-end application can write to the content lake. So you could do things like having ratings and reviews and changing every time someone adds a review, it would trigger a change in your content lake, which then gets pulled next time you populate that site again. So yeah, integrating with other systems is usually very easy from Sanity's perspective. It's often on the other tools APIs that you might find some tricky setups which you need to overcome.
I can host it on Sanity, is that correct?
Yeah, so we host one studio for you. We are looking at, do we need to offer more hosting? Because we see the need. Some people have multiple studios. Maybe you have one for QA and one for production. Usually that's not so much of a problem, but maybe you want to have multiple studios to differentiate the different users who are interacting with your content. You might have, in the demo I showed, I used the workspaces for that. but you might also want to have completely different studios. So yeah, we are looking, so we host one version for you, but you can also integrate your studio into the code for your Vercel deployment. So you can have your studio embedded into your project structure, so you don't have to deploy two different things every time you make a change. You can actually just bundle it up in one application in a similar way that you would then have your website / studio, and then you can jump into your studio, for example.
Well, I love Vercel. It's so easy, but you can also have it on-prem. You can have your own system set up and
the studio is a very static React application, so everything is done client side, so you can run it on any service you have on the planet. You can run it locally on your computer as well, which I think is a huge benefit, right? So when you start the course, you're actually running it on your computer, and only after a while you're deploying it, because you could also just run it on your computer if you wanted to. So you can run it on-prem, on Vercel, on AWS, on what have you.
I'm hoping other people are getting ready with some questions. My last questions is like, can I use this to kind of manage my ads and list of sponsors? Would that be a typical content type?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what about
it's a very good use
forms?
case. Some of also, yes. So as I mentioned at the beginning with our principles, we wanted to integrate with systems which people already have. So if you already have a form system, let's say you're using SurveyMonkey as a form, for example, or some kind of form tool, then you can easily integrate that into Sanity and make it manageable in Sanity. And I think some of the big Norwegian ministeriums for health and service are also using Sanity to create these forms. So you can build a form builder by utilizing the Sanity affordances we are providing to you. For the ad manager, absolutely. Some big companies you saw earlier, Morning Brew is one of the big publisher of newsletters. They run and manage all the ads in Sanity as well. And it goes defining, what content type do you have? So if an ad or a sponsor is an entity and you might want to manage certain things with them, then you can just easily create that in your system and link that up to your ad delivery system, for example.
Well, there's a lot of questions. I'm gonna
like very often,
yes. I'm basically gonna end it now. I just want to remind people that please support me and Hessdalen too. If you join to this developer program, then you will get to learn more about Sanity, because that's an important part of the project that we are doing now. But yes, you can go to Hessdalen and you can also click on this donate, because we are looking for UFOs, and we want to find them.
I also wanted to call out our community in addition to that. So we have a Slack community under sanity.slack.com where you can also join and have conversations with other developers. So also for you, Fred, this is a great forum where you can ask questions and get new ideas, and people show their work they're doing. So yeah, I encourage you to also share the work you've been doing and your learn paths on our Slack forum.
Yeah, the best way to learn is to do it yourself, try it out. So yeah, that's basically it. I want to see if there's any questions, or if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, or raise their hand. Let me see, chat. We have recorded the meeting, so and they can reach out to me, and I will go to your community and try to find some answers. I do know that in Capgemini we even have some projects working with Sanity, and that guy was not. He was busy, so he will have to look at this recording. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you and with your audience. And yeah, as Fred said, if you have any questions, come to our community or reach out to me personally. And all the best for your project, and your search for the UFOs.
Thank you. no questions, so I think we'll just end it there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.